Hey everyone, happy Friday. Let me admit the Zoom members. Get rid of the waiting room.
Hi everybody.
Hey Hubert and Jesus on Zoom, and we're talking to Alan and
Hello everyone.
Manchester. Hey. Happy Friday. Alan was talking about using the Chrome library and getting stuck on stuff. Which I don't blame him. Oh, I gotta switch my
Yeah.
we haven't used it in quite a while just because we went down several times rabbit holes of doing stuff with it, and even for Isaiah's who programs in it, it's tricky. You got to do a lot of programming around the tool. And it's nothing that, Geek Dude actually has been joining us lately a lot here too. He's the author of the Chrome.hk library. And it's just how he connects to the object is problematic. And unfortunately, there's no simple, I'm sure he spent a lot of time trying to solve it, and it's just not easy. Also, I will at least announce it here at some point, but for the heroes, we have a mini webinar on like the history of web scraping with AutoHotkey, covering everything from what we outline, say it's maybe 6-7 different approaches.
7 approaches, yeah.
Yep.
I remember it was a few more.
Okay, yeah. And then discussing which ones to use and when, and why you prefer one over that. Now, the difference in that thing, we're going to set it during a scheduled time where the heroes can attend. So if you're a hero, you can attend and ask questions, but we're going to make it public after, right? So if you're not a hero member, you'll still get to watch it. You don't get to attend and ask questions, but it's going to be some really valuable information.
I think that's the most, I would say, one of the most valuable things that we had with the community is that they get to ask questions in the live session, and they get to learn a lot. And we as well, because they come up with questions that we wouldn't have thought, right? But if you're just watching a video, well, that's it. It's just whatever is in the video, right?
Yeah, and it's a subtle point. You wouldn't think it's a big difference, but I remember when I was taking a VBA class, I tried taking it remotely, and it didn't have live sessions. And so you were doing everything remotely, and it was so hard to learn. And I'm like, this class needs a little bit of Zoom time. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
Happy Friday. Oh, and Jean's there, and TN. We had some interesting posts. Actually, that was, and I want, have you had a chance to read that article? I said that Tom, not this Tom, sorry, not Tab Nation, but Thomas posted. Tom, I did send it to you as well, just because it was, it was really interesting. That it was a long article, but really interesting about pricing and taking a. Actually, Jean, you're the other one I'd love for your thoughts on it if you're listening. I don't know if you got a chance to read that article, but it was taking a project that you launched at first, waiting for donations, and then trying to convert it into a paid project. And it was just a really good, fun, written, and good article.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see Jean being really into that article.
Yeah.
With QAP.
I'll put the link to it here in the chat, but I was thinking as I could we'll just plan a call to talk through the things that he mentions in it. It was really interesting.
Yep.
I'll throw it in the Zoom chat as well for people. Actually, well, it's already in the Telegram chat, so most heroes already have it, but there's the chat here. There we go. So what do we got going on? Who's got something to work on?
Yeah. I was looking at your comment in the YouTube video, in the YouTube live stream, saying that we rarely web scrape anymore. And actually, recently we had this client saying like, "Hey, let's get all the contacts from this page." And so I spent most of my time trying to figure out if there was an API call rather than trying to get the data from the web page. And as soon as I noticed, hey, there's an API call here. We did that in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it takes so much work off our backs, just being able to pick something and returns everything, like, oh God.
To back up a step, a client wrote me, said, "Hey, how hard would this be?" And I was looking on my phone and it was lazy loading the page. And then for each contact, you had to click to get their email address and I think phone number. But I'm like, ooh, I said, he's like, how much will it cost? I'm like, I don't know. Like I need to play with it a little because I'm like, it's just hit and miss, right? I'm like, but which is what Isaiah says. The first thing we always do is just say, hey, is there a way where we can actually skip the whole web page element and use, of course, a browser load is an API call, right? So this is where it gets a little confusing. But if you can see, usually a browser load page is doing a lot of API calls, and there'll be one specific one that gets and pulls often the data you want often. And actually, I didn't look at it. Was it JSON? I assume
it was a JSON string. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And just makes it so easy. The data is already structured in a way you can easily grab just what you want from it. Yeah, it worked out.
I was
really
just gonna make that point. So long as you have structured data, it could be anything, tab delimited, comma delimited, in this case, JSON strings. If it is structured in specific ways, it is way easier to work with. Of course, HTML is structured, but usually often HTML pages has a lot of bunch of things that you don't really care about, like styling and buttons that you're not going to interact with. So getting just the data that you need is kind of like a catch-all,
not to mention that, but also because what were we doing? Oh yeah, the video with Ryan where we were demonstrating the Webview 2, which was a really interesting thing. But when you're working with web pages, also you got to deal with event triggers and a lot of other crap. Plus, which is what you were alluding to, is the file size alone is often like, let's say, a meg or over a meg. When you're dealing with just an API call, usually it's less than a tenth, right? Easily less than a tenth, often smaller than that. It's very specific. And the other really, really amazing thing is API call, they don't change. They very rarely change, right? So a web page changes somewhat frequently, right? Depending on the site. But yeah, it's a really great way to approach it. But anyway, does anyone have anything they want us to talk to besides us babbling? I can babble. Let me get going.
That's correct.
Tom, until someone chimes in here, I know I didn't watch the whole video, but I saw, you mentioned you had your, 48 hours of AutoHotkey where everything you had to do was
oh yeah. That was interesting.
I thought that was a great idea of a way to really expose yourself to have to use it, which would make you realize to do stuff you don't normally do, and therefore you probably learned some new stuff, is what I was thinking. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, no, my daughter's obsessed with, those 24-hour challenge things, 48-hour challenge things. So I was like, how can I do this with my channel? So I came up with the idea to do a 48. Originally, I was like, 24, but I was like, I'll go with 48, torture myself. And I mean, I automate it like, even if it was like something that's already built, like a key press, I was like, no, I need a hotkey for it. So even like mouse clicking left and right, I had to do that. The biggest thing I think I took from it was kind of like I've seen like you guys do this before, where you press a hotkey and it automatically brings up a like a menu, a GUI, whatever. I just use the message box that will go through my script and find every hotkey with whatever note is next to it saying, if you press F1, it does a left mouse click. Okay. So that was like the most helpful thing because, I was constantly adding hotkeys and stuff, but I definitely wasn't on my computer as much. I didn't even, I was working in this one 3D modeling program, and that was hard enough. And I was like, there's no way I'm playing video games today. So I wasn't on as much as I would normally be on the computer. Thankfully, some of the stuff I already had, I've written before, like opening tons of web pages and navigating through those. But yeah, it was interesting. You got used to it. I got really quick at left mouse and scrolling. I got really good at those. That just became like second nature because, that's pretty much, you got to use that for everything. But yeah, it was a fun thing. Obviously my video would have been like hours long, even with fast forwarding. So I kind of just took random clips throughout the day and just threw them in there and then talked about at the end of each day, like how it went, but it got easier as it went.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Hey,
I put on the I forget if I pinned a comment. I need to do that, but just saying like, hey, can anybody think of, another challenge? Like as torturous and slow as it was to do anything, even responding to a comment on like Facebook, because like I'm like, okay, I'm not going to type. I'm going to, put my send whatever text it is and have to send that way. So even answering a comment was like triple the length it normally would have been. And I was constantly reloading my script. So it was something else. But yeah, I definitely want to try something different too sometime, as torturous as that was.
No, but I remember a long time ago. I was in a class and it was a communications class. It doesn't matter. But one of the things was we had to do something. And one guy, he had this, I'll call it a fetish for lack of a better term, but he had this fascination with blind people and how they survive. So he went like, the first time he did it, he went like a weekend blind, completely blind. And then he did it for several weeks where he would do this. And I'm like, okay, the weekend thing, I can get that. Like you could learn a lot of stuff, right? Like, understanding, feeling, but also just skills and, your hearing, I'm sure, and other things. But I think the general point though is force yourself into do something. And, it's like almost like when you're picking up a new language, excuse the pun, because it's, AutoHotkey's a language. But I remember when I took sign language in junior college, I was learning it, but when we went somewhere and just said total immersion, we can't talk, that was when I really, really learned. Like I learned crazy amounts in a few hours because I had to, so it's really, it's an interesting thing.
It's funny you say that because I actually did literally the exact same thing you did. I was taking sign language, and we have a school. Delaware is known as one of the best states for deaf people, apparently, but because we have a bunch of schools that are solely for that. And it was like a field trip, I guess. I mean, we were in college, so you drove yourself, but we went there, and it was the same thing. 95% of the people there couldn't, hear you or speak. So you had to really like learn. And you're just so hyper focused on like, oh, he just made this sign and then did this. It must mean that. So even like stuff you didn't know, like you just learn.
Right.
Yeah. I think that was a really cool like experiment. I definitely want to do some more. I just haven't came up with anything yet.
So let me share my screen real quickly just to, and I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? That's interesting. Let me turn it off. Back to here. Here we go. So this is one of the things. So I have actually, I can't tell if this is a Google Calendar reminder or my Outlook calendar reminder. I think this is the Google Calendar reminder because I have both. But I'm happy they come up. I don't want to stop them from coming up. But what I really hate is they actually take the focus away from whatever I'm doing, right? What I would love is for them to come up, stay on top, but not take the focus away from where I'm typing. Because often I'll be typing and then, what I'm typing gets screwed up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it was just when this meeting came up, this is why I left it up. I'm like, it never dawned on me. Like I could probably do something with AutoHotkey to say, hey, when this exists, pay attention to, well, no, it'd have to be running all the time, wouldn't it? To go back to the program I was in is the point.
But there's two ways that I would go about that one. Either a script on the background that is always monitoring when the last active window, like all the time.
Right.
But another way, which is not that known, is that I'm 100% sure there is a way. That Windows have Z orders, right? Like one that is on top of another.
Yep.
The active window is always the top in the Z order. And right below that one is the last one that was. So you could have a AutoHotkey script that is only detecting this window. And as soon as it pops up, it actually grabs the previous window in the lowest window in the Z order. Well, not the lowest, the one below it. And then make that the active window again. So it's kind of like removing the focus as soon as it comes back in. That's another way that I would actually go about that one, which is basically a little bit easier to work with, I think, because a script that is always monitoring a script that is always monitoring which is the active window might not always be a good idea, but yeah.
Is that something you're pretty familiar with? Like, is that something you could try real quickly, or is that something we'd have to plan?
I think, well, I think we have to plan it. I have never done it myself. I know that there is a way,
Yeah.
but I think it is with the process command or something like that that gives you information about the running processes and stuff.
I think it's a great topic to do a tutorial on once we work through the first learnings.
Actually, even without even doing that, just when the window pops up, just hit Alt Tab for you automatically.
I was going to say that's what I do because it's so easy.
Right,
that's say, easy. Hey, if window active, the Alt Tab.
Yeah, exactly. And that would remove the focus off of it. And actually,
I mean, you get a little flash, but it's still better than nothing.
Right, and even removing the focus of the window might automatically bring the previous back into focus as well. So there's many ways. Yeah. I think there are many ways of trying to do this, but I have not played with that.
Yeah, I would think a win hook actually just monitoring for the thing also might be an easy way to get it to that is always be checking for it. But the thing is, it works so instantaneous, it's crazy. So in the chat, we had a couple things. Where was it? Someone mentioned about the whole, the Milkman Postman APIs with AutoHotkey, and he said, "How can I find an API call to use in AutoHotkey?" The problem is APIs are so nebulous and so huge of a topic. It's not a simple question to answer, right? Because I'm not actually, your question itself is a little vague. What we were discussing, was Ace was discussing, is, hey, we had a certain website we were trying to scrape. That website used several different APIs for populating the HTML, right? So we used Fiddler, or actually, I used Fiddler. I'm not sure what Isaiah used. Did you use Fiddler, or did you use the network?
The normal from Chrome, because I was on the page and I just checked.
Sure.
Okay, what happened there, right?
And so you can see what's happening, and then I didn't look at the code, but I assumed you used the WinHTTP request to send API calls to that server. And, I know when we first, because we ran it on his computer, it was really kind of a fascinating thing that I hadn't run into before, even though I know websites do this. He was running it and he was getting a different count and different
results.
Different people showing up.
Yeah.
And he's like, how come I get 400 and you have like 1,600? And I said, I already know the answer to that one, because I happened to notice when I would run it, it was picking people in Dallas to list first. And I'm like, oh, they know where I am. They're using some sort of geolocation to prioritize it. So kudos to them.
Correct. Yeah.
But what was interesting was when he did his code and then he gave it to me, because I said, well, we'll just run it there. We'll run it here. Maybe we'll do New York or whatever. Well, when he gave me his code, it had the 400 and whatever that he had. And we're like, wait a minute. Oh, and then we just saw in the cookies, it was actually, the cookies is what they were using to geocode. And so we removed the cookie and it just pulled everybody. And then we had the location and could easily filter by what we wanted to. But it was a fun little experiment.
That is correct.
Have, let me put the link to it. So over my head, there's a page on the Automator, which we have a lot of videos on, and we did a really good webinar on APIs. And so the webinar, I would say by far, is the best place to start when you start working with APIs. And then we talked, I think it was in the API one, because I think we did the web scraping one first. We compared and contrasted between web scraping and APIs, because it's a really good thing to kind of grasp. But boy, get ready to start learning HTTP protocol, because that's really what you're working with a lot.
That is correct.
And then depending on the data you get, JSON or XML usually is one of the two. JSON nowadays is much more common, but
Yep.
Well, I guess I can stop sharing my screen here. All right. Oh, and then and then Alan. So Alan mentioned he's partially blind, or he's legally blind in 40% of one eye, but we brought up the UIA approach. So I was having lunch with a buddy of mine yesterday. Hey, Don, if you're watching. And it turns out his wife, he's like, yeah, my wife works.
Oh, yeah.
She's a developer, but she works with accessibility, blah, blah, blah. And when he said it, I didn't interrupt him because we were just chit-chatting, and then later we circled back to it, and it turns out it is the stuff that she is developing for companies, the ACC structure and the accessibility access for blind people. So I'm like, oh, this, maybe we're going to have a call with her talking about the thought process, how they look at programs, how they kind of think about how to create an interface that will work for the tools that the blind people use, right? Like, I think it'll be an interesting behind the scenes thing, because we always just work with programs and we figure out how to use the UIA approach or accessibility one, depending on what's available. But Isaias and I don't have we don't even know. I mean, what thought process goes into what they use to decide how to tag, how to create elements, or their whole structure, right? And that's one of the things that's a bummer about the UIA approach is it's an amazing thing that's built into a lot of programs, but it's sadly really complex. And
I would say it's complex because there's no standard. So one program might do some things one way, another program would do it another way, and I'm like, what? To
me, it just gets back to Isaias, which is that's the whole thing. It's why web scraping is so complex too, right? Everyone builds their web pages differently, and so that's what makes it so. It's not Microsoft making Excel; it's everybody making their own versions of Excel. Like, imagine how hard that would be. So
yeah, exactly. In general, I think to the point, I don't know if when there's a little time, if there are no questions, I might show real quick, if that's okay, Joe, how we could, like, the first step to see, like, the first action we take whenever we're trying to deal with APIs. I think I've done this on the heroes group. They already know what the process is, but we will see what other questions come up. If there's nothing else, then I would go ahead and demonstrate that.
So far I haven't seen anybody with a specific question.
I have a question. It might be GitHub JSON AHK based. That's Brian Bills. Can you go ahead and ask the question, Brian? Let's see.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, so what I am dealing with is one second. I am trying to use the JSON .ahk file from GitHub. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but every time I try and do it, I get a technical error that does not look like an AutoHotkey error, where it would be, just be more or less message box. This one gives you the call.
I think I'm understanding his question. So basically, you got the thing from GitHub, but you have to include it on your script. And after it's included, it's usually not a function or something. Depending on which one you downloaded, it might be an object. And if it is the one that is an object, it works a little bit differently than what you're used to. So if you're sharing your, so this is something else. You're showing a JavaScript error. So are you opening a web page?
No, it's not a web page. But you do agree that it's JavaScript based, not AHK. So give me 1 second. I'll switch my screen to the AutoHotkey one so that you can help me, so you can see that. And then we'll go from there. Give me 1 second.
Yep.
My JSON file is here.
Yeah, that's actually an object. So now you have to, every time you use it, you would have to use it using object notation as is shown there. So you have to use JSON.load and then whatever text you're going to load into the JSON string. So that's one thing. But can you go back to your script? Because I didn't see you including it first.
That's, I'll have to show you something funny. This one it includes this script here, which is actually this script here.
Right, that includes, yeah.
Here.
Right. I see.
And it includes it there.
Right, yeah, okay.
I'm totally lost about what is going on because I messaged the guy and he's like, oh, it's working on me. It's like, Yeah, well, it's not.
Oh, where is the main script? Let me see the main script. The one that you're running, the one that you're double clicking to run. This one is this the one, Don?
This is the one I'm testing with. I'm trying to get it to work, and once I get it to work, then it's
right. Now here's the question.
bandit.
When you run this program right now, if you run this, do you get an error?
Yeah, I get I told you at the beginning.
Well, that means that this particular library is trying to call an Internet Explorer object, seems like, or one type of browser. And the browser is trying to call a specific website with some JavaScript in it. And that JavaScript is not being recognized. So what is going on is the library that you're using, which is OBS WebSocket, is having an issue with the web browser. I cannot really answer this because I don't know this particular library, but can you give me control for a second? Let me double check something real quick. I'm just gonna request. I just sent a request.
I do not see the
at the bottom here, you should see a request. Do you see it there? It might be in a different window. That might be in a different window. If you have different monitors, it might show up in a different monitor.
I really am not seeing it. Okay. 1 second.
Yep.
So
okay, that's why I didn't see it.
Okay, so let me do something real quick, because after it creates it creates a bunch of variables. And then what I was going to see is ActiveX maybe. Nope. And I will not do like a whole search on it. I'm just going to go really quickly and verify if there's an ActiveX element or web browser element. No. So I cannot really answer your question because I don't know how this library works. And one of the ways that I could do this, and this is what I would do, is stop on the script. Like I would just place kind of like what is called a breakpoint. So you create the breakpoints for it and then stop and see step by step what is the program doing and see where it throws the error. And then I would tell you, okay, the reason for this is because of that. But I'm not really familiarized with how this thing is really behaving. So I cannot really answer your question at this point.
Okay. But hey, you gave me a hint of what to look at to try and get that resolved later.
Yeah, maybe I could download the library later on and take a look at it and probably post it in either the forums. I don't know if you're a hero member, but we have a chat in which usually what I do is that I go ahead and sometimes answer some questions in there, but yeah.
Basics $6 a month I spend. So yeah. Let me stop sharing and then we'll go from there.
Yep.
So a couple of things which may or may not be related, but it made me think about it. One, which, and if Isaias wants to follow up on it to explain it a little deeper, but one of the really, really, really important things to realize with version 1 of AutoHotkey versus version 2 is in version 1, if you're trying to use a class but you don't include it, AutoHotkey will fail silently and not even let you know, like that, like, hey, you need to use and include, like, hey, this doesn't exist, and it's really, really annoying.
I just had that today. I was testing a script and I spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out why it was not doing anything, because AutoHotkey just simply gave me a blank message box. But if it was, version 2, at least it would have errored. It would say, you're trying to access something that doesn't exist. And I would have known right away. But in this case, to your point, sometimes you're getting an error and you don't know it because you were not notified of it.
Yeah. And then the second one is just the other day, we released a video talking about the Webview 2 approach, which was in because that's it just popped in my head, the whole JSON error. Not that that was the thing overall overlying problem, but when you try to use like ActiveX nowadays, or i.e. to read a page, most pages, on normal websites now won't even load properly. And so this Webview 2, it's a little more complex of an approach. However, it's basically allows you to do stuff like that you could, just like with Chrome kind of sense, right? Of you can programmatically. It's now, Zayas, this is where I wanted to ask you a little bit more. This is the one that's like the replacement for the COM object, basically. Is that right?
Yes, it will definitely at some point become the replacement. It isn't yet, but that's the idea behind it. That's the new. And actually, I noticed that, for example, if you go to your Android phone, if you go to the system information, you will see that they have a Webview component, and they tell you what the Webview component version is. It's not simply that Webview is kind of like the replacement for IE COM object. Is actually that is the component that is used across devices, not only Windows, but also Linux and also Android.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the reason why there's a big push for it. It is because it's going to be used everywhere.
I'm reading Lewis's comments of there was a post. It looked like it was a regex. I think is what they were doing here. But let me free from that. So they're doing something in OBS, but I saw, which I think we lost the F in the file read command. Do you see it, Isaias?
So that's on the chat, on the YouTube chat, right?
Yes.
To save cam settings in OBS and a cam renamer.
So the first thing I would say is, which depending on you're doing a file, see the problem is we don't have your text file, so we can't really work on something if we don't have what's actually there, right? We can't help with the regex. What we need is the texture parsing as well, right? And then we can give it a shot.
We need at least now. The first thing I'm noticing on his regular expression is that there's some options there that are not valid in AutoHotkey. So
/m, yeah.
Well, yeah, the M and the I. So let me go ahead and share my screen for a second and comment on that. What I noticed. Right. So what I noticed is that he has this
as well, right?
Right. So he's having this here. Well, the /n does work. So that is okay because that is valid regular expression. What is not valid is this part here. Well, it's not that it's not valid. It actually is, now that I remember.
He froze.
Because you can set up options. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Let me just pause this. Let's see if that helps. So now I remember that you could set up options temporarily for a specific group. This group has those options, and after that, the options are not there anymore. That's what is going on. What I would recommend doing is just removing this part and making the whole regular expression has these options all the time, which is what I usually do. Now that I'm noticing that you're trying to work with a multi-line thing, here's the thing, it doesn't work like that in AutoHotkey. So say, for example, you have text, and that text is a multi-line, line 1, line 2, and you have this. If you use regex match on that text, and you use the multi-line option and try to match line, and so if you do that, that is returning one line. It's matching that thing and it's not matching the second one. You have to loop through the regex match to be able to match every single one of them. So let me show the difference there.
I laughed earlier, not because of what was done, because we recently made a video on this. I haven't released it yet,
right,
but I'm going to put it in the chat in case, it's still solvent as is, but yeah.
Right. What happens is there is an option in regular expressions in all engines that is called global matching. So if you do not have that option set, you only get the first line, not the second one, which is what is happening right now in AutoHotkey, because AutoHotkey does not have global matching options. That doesn't work. It only matches the first one, and then you have to tell the regex match to start from the next position. So your regular expression here gives you a position. It will give you a position. And what you have to do is take that position +1. So that's where that's what is going on at the moment. And regex, let me just do a little bit of a demonstration here, because regex match, you will notice that there is a position parameter there. That's the one that you have to go ahead and do this. It's annoying. I don't like it. You start with position 0, okay? And then you have to do a while loop, and you're going to start regular expression matching whatever you want. You have your match variable, whatever it is. I want to match the whole line. And the position is going to be position +1. So you start at 0, position +1 is going to start at 1. When it matches, it's going to save the position, and it will do that again. So now I would do match. What you will notice is that the first time it runs, let me see. This time it matched the whole thing because I said multi-line, but I want to do this. It would give you line 1. It matched twice. Let me see something. Match until the end of the line, maybe. No, it's doing the whole thing. That is because of the multi-line object. Let me see. Position 1. Let me remove this here for a bit. Still giving me the whole thing. And this is the problem. In AutoHotkey, you're not matching line by line, which is what you're doing on here. What you're expecting is that each line is going to match separately. Let me try something here. Let me try this. I'm going to do multi-line. Right. That's the problem. It's not what you're expecting. So your regular expression, and Joe, by the way, if you change the new line for the regex new line, it should also do it. So it actually matches anyways with that. It's just that you have to start at position 1. And every time you match, you have to go to the next position. So when it matches, it tells you where it matched, and then we'll just start on the next position. It is a little bit tricky to work with this, but that's the issue that you're having at this point, because I'm noticing that you're doing kind of like a matching on new lines with a multi-line regular expression, and that doesn't usually work as you think it would. Let me try something here. Right. This is what is going on. And this whole thing that you're matching there is also kind of like messing up with your regular expression. But you have to keep in mind, in AutoHotkey, whenever you're matching, it's not going to work as the normal regular expression that matches all at once. It just matches one of them, and then you have to loop through it to get each match individually. Hope that makes sense.
They added some more. The problem is YouTube doesn't keep the line breaks, so it makes it a little tricky to understand what's going on where. But if you want to take a look at that, I was looking in mine. I was trying to find a similar file because I'm using OBS right now, and I thought maybe I would have a similar file that we could look on my computer, but I don't see anything that looks similar to a text file that I thought they were reading.
Right. I'm looking at what they sent, and let me just say something. Here, you're matching the position 1, so you start at 1, right? And then you're adding the length of whatever the match was, right? Which it's okay, but you don't have to. If you just add one position to it, like position +1, the previous one is not going to match. So you don't have to calculate sizes or anything. Just put +1 there. Then you have the outputs going on in here. So M, you don't I don't know what you're doing there. Then you have a message box here. And yeah, at this point, this is the correct solution. You have to be matching over and over again. But we have to see the text that you're matching to be able to actually help you out there, because I cannot know. I don't know if it's a problem with the regular expression or if it is a problem with the regular the engine, the AutoHotkey engine that works differently than other engines, which is
if you can go into the text file and copy the text from the file and paste that, then we can.
And the regular expression, yeah.
Yeah. Mage, I hope he was joking that he didn't realize today was Friday. So I'm laughing because my son's sick, right? So he stayed home from school yesterday, and I went and, as I mentioned, had lunch with my buddy yesterday, and I've come home and at 6:30 last night, because he hadn't eaten dinner, I messaged him on Telegram and said, "Hey, are you awake? Do you want to eat?" And I didn't hear a response, and so this morning at like 6:37, he writes back and says, "Kind of." And I'm like, it's the next day, right? Like, I think he slept over 12 hours, who knows how long. But yeah, I think he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. It's, it's morning, it's not night."
Yeah.
My sister did the opposite when I was a kid. In the wintertime, it gets dark so early.
Right.
She went to take a nap, woke up, thought it was morning, started eating cereal and packing her bag for school. We're like, it's not the next day. So it's like the opposite.
That's awesome. And by the way, in both chats, I threw in a link to it. So going back to Brian, I think it was on that one. Yeah, because he was doing stuff with the WebSocket. During one and it ties it all together, because I was talking to Geek Dude about the Chrome.ahk library, how to use it. And he mentioned something with WebSockets. And I'm like, "Oh, can you explain a little bit more about like WebSockets and really what they are?" Like, I know I've read about them with API calls and this and that. I don't understand what it is, but I've never really dove into it. So it was a really good, maybe 5 or 7 minutes of that hour-long call or whatever it was, but it was very interesting. Okay, so now we have, I got to approve. Every time they're posting the stuff, I have to approve the weird text.
Yeah.
Then you can guess where the line breaks are.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if we could use something to escape it in YouTube.
I think you can, yes. I think there is a way of escaping that, but I'm not sure how. Let me try that. Okay. Actually, that's one of the, I don't know if he knows.
That's weird.
I don't know if he knows how to join our Zoom meeting call, but that's one of the reasons why we rather have it on the.
So much easier.
Right. So very likely this is what we're getting. And this is a second line right here. And this is the third line. So this looks like a log file. And he's trying to capture something specific from this line, but it looks different than the regular expression that he sent. Any USB and CAM, USB or CAM in the lines or videos. So there's 3 things that he wants to match. What I usually do, so let me see, where is USB here? I don't see USB. I don't see, well, I do see CAM and video here, vid. So he wants, so let me get this straight. You want the whole line that contains that. Is that correct? Because that would be a little bit different. So let's go to regex 101. Let me do this. I want to capture anything that contains vid, like this, or anything that contains CAM.
Not to change the focus, right? But you could read this file and then do a stir split over new lines and then look for, just use an in string or something like that in each.
That definitely,
And it's a
is
super
very,
simple approach.
very simple idea of what I would do. But in general, your regular expression might look like this. And now, and this is the point, when you're doing it in AutoHotkey, is a little bit different than this thing because of the multi-line going on. That's all. So if I copy this into a variable, what is going to happen is whenever I try to match that message box, no, so let's regex match. We have our variable, and I want to match anything video or anything come right into my match. This is multi-line. You would get the whole thing at once, I think. Let me see, hold on. Let me just 1 second. Do I have any, what? Oh, because there's yeah, the guys here. Right. So this is the issue. AutoHotkey, even though you have different lines, is not matching each line by itself, which is basically one of the issues that you're having. Now, if by any chance you make it so that it goes by new lines, then I think it would match just one thing. And let me make sure that this is not consuming the whole thing. Yeah, it would match only one line. It doesn't match the 3 lines, you see? So at this point, it is, you have 2 matching because I do have video and I do have camera. You see the webcam here and the video here. So it should match 2 lines. Instead, what it does is that it matches just the first one and it doesn't continue with the next one because I'm matching the new line here. So what I would do then is what I mentioned before. You would do position +1, position starts at 0, while position here, then let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to loop through it. Let me see what it does. It gave me 1, and then it gave me the next one. Then it gives me the, so hold on, how is it doing that? Oh, notice that the position here is matching after, so notice that what is matching is the last letter. You see the last character because I'm adding 1 to the position. But this is because I'm matching the whole thing too. So that's mainly the thing. I should match one line and then match the second one. Maybe that's the reason why you were doing the length of the match, which is okay. We could actually just go ahead and do string length match, which would now not match at all. That's a good one. Oh, because match here the first time is empty. So my match is going to be, let me see. I would make it at least 1, right? But that doesn't match the second line. Again, this is one of the issues with working with AutoHotkey's way of doing the regular expression matching, especially when it is multi-line, because it actually, I don't know how that, let me do something. Let me remove 1 character from there. Nope. Let me try something here. Right, it's not matching the second time. So that is one of the situations of matching new lines in here. Going with what Joe mentioned is the quickest approach. You grab your variable, you string split it for I line in, and then you say string split the text, so var in this case, and you split it by new lines, what you're doing here is that now, let me see what I got here. So let me see what I got there. Yeah, so each line now is its own thing. And now I could do the regular expression match, regex match.
Or just do an in string.
Or in string, exactly. If in string line, you know, the reason why I don't like the in string in this case is because I'm matching two different things, right? So one is vid and the other one is cam, right? In this case. So I would have to put a different in string.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Right, because you have to do you know, cam now. And if that is true, message box line, that is terrible. That's the reason why sometimes I don't use in string. If it's just matching one thing, perfect. But if it,
well, if
it's matching two things, no, I can't. Regex match, then line, and then in the regex match, I would use cam or vid, and that way it's just a one-liner, you know. So that works the same.
10 minutes left.
All right. So just to let you understand what's going on, instead of using regex match to match multi-line, which I would never do, I would instead, as Joe mentioned, just string split the thing via new lines and work with each line individually, matching the three things that you want to match. So either if it has either of those three things, then act on the whole line, which would be file appending it somewhere else or appending it to a variable. So var dot equals line, new line. And now in the end, I would just message box the variable here like this, and I should have, you know, a few lines. But oh, the USB matched too. It matched all of them for whatever. Let me remove this too. I should have two lines now. Oh, it didn't do that the first time. Let me see. Hold on. Match. Oh. Where, I'm not sure what happened there, but in general, what I'm thinking, oh no, I know, because of I'm using the same name as the other one, var2, that's the problem. So it is appending to an existing variable. Oh my God. Yeah. So you have one line there, second line here, and in the end, I should have two lines. Exactly.
So
that's the reason why you should name your variables correctly.
There's no doubt. There's some more cameras that were provided, but I'd still just say, you know, there's always so many ways you can approach a problem, right? You could easily keep going down the rabbit hole you're doing and just say, hey, if OBS cam, you know, is there, don't call that a match, right? Like, I mean, it's
right, exactly. That's the good thing about regex replace, is that you can specify exactly how you want it to match. But for example, and just to make it I want cam to be the only word, which the /b, I do a boundary. Now this one should not match. So I should only have one line, you see, because cam is not by itself because I put boundaries in it. So webcam will not match. But if I remove the word web, now it should match both. So again, that's the good thing about regular expressions, that is really flexible. You can match whatever you want. But the key takeaway from this is, don't try to match multi-line statements in AutoHotkey because it's tricky. It's better to split each line into one line and then match the regex match there in one line. That's my advice to you.
Good. Awesome. Does anyone else got? We got 6 minutes left before we jump over to the hero calls. We've been having a lot of fun in the hero groups in, like I said, helping each other and learning from each other. So if you're interested, check it out. Oh, and hey, we didn't talk about yesterday was AutoHotkey's 19th birthday, right? That's,
yes, that's right. Yeah.
19 years old.
It's almost legal drinking age,
There you go.
at least in America.
So Brian chatted about FY, it was a misplaced //. Cool. Well, sounds like Brian got his problem
Thing.
figured out.
Okay. Okay, Luis, good luck with that. And yeah, let's see if that works out.
Yeah, OBS is an amazing program. But yeah, and that's weird, is I just didn't see. I mean, I have, you know, a couple cameras, but why I'm surprised I don't have a file. I didn't see anything like it, at least like what you're mentioning.
Describing. Probably he has login turned on. What I just found interesting is that two people were talking about OBS at the same time because Brian was doing something with OBS as well. So it was Brian and Louis both working with OBS at the same time. You know, like that was funny. If I get it done, can you guys help testing the program? Very likely. And I would definitely suggest you going to the forum and also posting your script in there, because a lot of people, they just like testing stuff. So if you go to scripts and functions, you go to scripts and say, here, this is a script that I'm developing. I want to be able to test it. I assure you, a lot of people just go ahead and run it and verify.
Just make sure you mention OBS, you know,
Yes.
so it doesn't.
Yes, that is right.
It'll help filter out who sees it, people that are using OBS, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, OBS is so ubiquitous. It's very fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree with posting in the forums because, like you were saying, people like to help. Because to them, you know, it's a way to maybe learn something new and challenge themselves. You know, I do that all the time on Reddit, where I just like helping out, not even though like maybe I won't learn anything new. It's just like, you know, practice debugging is probably like one of the best skills you can get is, you know,
There you go.
something like that.
There we go.
Yeah, actually, Jackie, that was where he became an admin for doing support on the forum. That's how him and I got talking, was he was just doing it so he would learn AutoHotkey and he would get other people's problems, stuff that he didn't normally work in, to force him to get exposed, as we were talking about earlier, right? Force yourself to be exposed to something that you're not used to doing. And he learned an amazing amount of stuff because of that.
Yeah, that's how it was with me. Like I never like read all the documentation. It was like, okay, here's my problem. What do I think could solve it? And that's how I originally started learning. And then COVID hit and I went on to, you know, Reddit and the forums and stuff and started doing that. And it just like took me to like the next level, like real fast, because I'm not going to learn a command really unless I have a need for it.
Yeah.
I mean, for all I know, there's a command out there I don't even know exists. Actually, it was maybe 2 months ago. I was trying something and Zaziel showed me, well, I think it was like system get something for monitors. I didn't even know that existed because I never had a need for it.
Exactly.
Well, which is one of the other points I was going to bring up, was a really great thing about the forum also is you have a ton of different people using different OSs on different systems. Yeah. And it's much better to have a lot of different types of people testing your stuff, because then you really identify the bugs.
Plus you get other point of views, you know,
yeah.
Just because you have a specific problem, you know, there can be 5 different ways to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you maybe know, like, you know, I'm reviewing, helping someone, and I'm like, well, here's how I would do it. But then I see how someone else does it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, so you can also get like different perspectives, which is always really nice for like cases like you're saying, you know, different computers, different, you know, situations.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't mention that, even though I think we did at least one video during the time, but my keyboard died the other day. I have this Windows Microsoft 4000 keyboard, which Microsoft stopped making, and I had to switch to a different keyboard, and I was really useless. I mean, like, so many things didn't have some of the same buttons, and then it had a different, you know, like the return and enter keys and stuff were a whole different layout, and wow, it was really frustrating. So yeah, it was kind of funny. But anyway, okay. Bye, John. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everyone. Heroes, we'll see you. Go join the hero meeting, and we'll be there in a moment. I'm probably gonna take a quick bio break, but thanks everyone.